Hey guys, what's up? It is Ripe again, back with more entitled People. If you enjoyed these story compilations, please don't forget to tell me in the comments, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, Want to start drama? Fine, prepare to lose your job. The cast is Karen for sucky coworker, Irina for good coworker, and me, a gremlin who likes pizza. Background, you see, I'm a 20-year-old girl who works at a chain of convenience we shall call the Tree of Dollar. Working as a cashier sucks already because of the virus and entitled customers, but it is worse when your own coworkers cannot get along. Karen had just been working there at the store for perhaps only around 3 months, yet during the time she had already been promoted to key holder. The power going to her already bleached head, she was acting like she was the one in charge of all of us, even though most of us were around longer or had the same position. This is where Irina comes along. Poor Irina, she was a target from day one due to her being a tad bit of a doormat. She would clean the store whenever Karen was lazy. She had to cut her break short because Karen wanted to go on her break. Even her own labeled food in the fridge was taken because Karen didn't want to spend $5 on some cheap TV dinner. The incident, it eventually got to the point to where Irina finally had enough and the two began arguing day by day all of the time. Now, some information I have missed due to not being on the same shift, but the next day I came in, there was already a bad vibe in the room. Karen was muttering under her breath and talking a lot of horrible things about Irina in front of me and the customers she was tending to in line while Irina tried to stay her distance. My boss wanted for me to have them stay distant, yet the moment I came back up front, the two were arguing over how poor the rug was being swept. Karen, there's so much dirt on here, you think this is a barn or something? Irina, it's just a small bit, I will grab the broom. Karen, don't even bother, you cannot even clean the rug right. Mommy and daddy cannot even show you that much. Insert racist slur here. Please note that Karen and myself are of color, yet she would always say racist things about Irina, who was white. Stereotypical things like trailer trash or some other nonsense. Irina at this point looked truly drained and walked off to go find the broom. Later, when our shift was about to end, she asked me to ring her up real quick since she didn't want Karen to at her register, and I said sure. After all, she only had like 2 to 3 things and there were not a lot of people in line. Right away, as soon as I had finished bagging her stuff, Karen was right behind me and began yelling at us that we shouldn't be shopping on the clock. Note, this was totally okay with my boss since everyone, and I mean everyone, buys stuff on their shift. Karen wanted for Irina to clock out and then buy her stuff, but Irina of course protested. By this time my boss and supervisors had already left us alone in the store and it was just us along with some stockers until second shift arrived. More people began to enter the line and watch as Karen began to enter this huge tirade of how teens like us were so disrespectful and how she would teach us a lesson. Right away she took out her phone and called my boss about how we were shopping on the clock and disobeying her. My boss was about to ask for our side of the story, but soon Karen hanged up the phone and gave us a look like, "Huh, you're in trouble now." Tired and annoyed, I told her that she had to chill out, that this was not shopping on the clock and that even if it was fine since it was allowed. Big mistake. Little note about Karen, she is a middle-aged woman who still acts like a trashy teenager from the 11th grade. Her attitude was the worst as she would flip out on anyone without care or regard of who they were. She was already in hot water because of this, and now that the fire had been stroked, she was pissed. I can't remember everything word from word, but Karen was livid. She began to insult my hair, my clothes, and saying that no one would ever want an ugly stank-ass hobo like you. Now I have horrible anxiety as it is. Imagine all of this, all of the yelling, all of the cursing, everything, and the store is packed. People are watching, and here I am not knowing anything to say as I am reliving high school all over again. I went into a panic attack, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't speak, and I was crying, but I was seething. Granted, I shouldn't have said this, but the look on her face made this so worth it. Me? At least I'm not some goddamn BIMBO still here slaving away at a counter while trying to screw some piece on the side. Things got messy from there. Karen wanted to fight, but we were taken outside by the stalkers, bless them, and left to go home. I had been given a few days off to calm my nerves, but it didn't help. I felt like complete crap. And now the revenge. Karen made me feel like I was at my weakest point all over again, like I was trash just as I was feeling confident over myself and everything. I wanted revenge. When I had come home that day, my grandmother saw me crying and came to comfort me before leaving for a few hours. When she came back, she told me Karen would not be a problem. I later got a phone call from the big boss, the district manager, over the events of that day, and after telling him my side, he said he will contact me later. I thought that I was done for, that it was over for me. But then Karen was gone for a few days turned into a week, and a week became 2. We were informed that Karen had to be tragically let go due to workplace bullying, harassment, poor customer service, and so on. She was gone. Yeah, right? Not quite. It wasn't until I came home and told my grandma what happened, and then she finally told me, strike 3. Now my granny is a pretty woman. Screw with her, pray that she will show mercy. Screw with her family, pray that you will die quickly. That day, when she left for those few hours, I found out it was to set her plan into action. She returned to the store hoping to see Karen. My gran found out near the back on her phone, talking about how disrespectful I was to her and that I better watch my back. My grandma started her plan, beginning to act as the world's most annoying customer, making spills in front of Karen, constantly interrupting her on the phone, etc. Remember when I said Karen's attitude was the worst? Yeah, she flipped. She flipped once again and lost her cool. From what my grandma told me, Karen didn't know that my boss had arrived to the store to switch off with her, and when he saw his employee yelling at an elderly woman over a split case of water, that said elderly woman was hunched over to grab. It was the nail in the coffin. Karen was gone. I originally wasn't going to post this due to it being so long ago last year, like October, and unfortunately Irina left the job due to it stressing her out too much. From what I hear, she is doing better now, free from the terror of Karen. As for Karen, she is the reason I am now posting today. She came to the store and judging by her surprised face, she didn't think I was still around, but I was. My coworker was outside on her smoke break when Karen stormed outside and proceeded and went to my confused coworker. Now, judging by her yelling, she was talking about me, obviously, a lot of "I cannot believe that they have someone like her still working here," and "I don't like liars, she's a damn liar getting me fired, and she stinks and she's so ugly." Other than the personal shots to my appearance, thanks for that Karen, I took a lot of pleasure seeing her this pissed off at seeing me. It brought me even better joy when I went to lock the doors and flipped her off away from the camera's view, smiling and all. Karen, if you ever see or read this, just know you're a damn idiot. I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you for letting me get this off of my chest and bearing with me for the story. It feels hella good after such a long time. And guys, if you have watched until here and enjoy stories about awful coworkers, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support the channel. Thank you so much in advance, your support means the world to me. And the next one is titled "Completely Outflanked My A-hole Coworker." So this just happened about 6 months ago. I got a job in a different department than the one I started in. Great job really. I really like my manager and my supervisor, but my coworker in this department is a bit weird. She is a neat freak and you cannot set or leave anything on her desk without permission. You cannot touch her chair because she has back problems. She slaves all over her job and whines constantly about how much work she has. I started my role and floundered a bit. I didn't really get training and it was a struggle for a while, but I slowly got the hang of things and got pretty good at what I do. Except my coworker has decided that she doesn't like me and has started picking fights over stupid stuff. And I do mean stupid stuff. Like if I was working on something and she needed something taken care of, she would ask me to do it, and opposed to waiting for me to finish what I was doing, she would start yelling at me. Or if I did something that annoyed her, like ask her what time she wanted to take her lunch, that would be another scream fest as she shrieked at me for not knowing what her schedule was and bothering her at her sacred desk. It got bad enough that we both got called into a meeting where our manager told us that we needed to work things out or they would make changes, and left it there. That improved things for a little while, and then she was back to where she was before. Then I realized that she was keeping a log on me of every single mistake I had ever made. Seriously, put a box on the wrong shelf? It goes in the log. Leave a power supply out of something by accident? It goes in the log. It got to the point that she complained to my manager when she thought my clothes were not clean enough to wear to work. We work in a warehouse, I don't wear nice clothes in my role, and I ended up having to have an embarrassing conversation with my manager. I started to retaliate by going to my supervisor whenever she flipped out on me to complain that this was not acceptable, we are supposed to be on the same team, and screaming at your coworkers is not kosher. Management agreed with me, and more than a few discussions were had with her about her attitude. So the Cold War went on for a while, and to their credit, my management team tried their best to make it work. They had both of us take a conflict management resolution course, we had our conflict styles analyzed, they coached us. The thing was, they pretty much came to the same conclusion that I did. She didn't like me and didn't care if I knew it and wanted me gone. So we finally had a blow up that was bad enough that she decided it was time to break out the big guns. She took the log of my sins to our manager to show how incompetent I was. She got shot down in a hurry on that one. Apparently keeping a mistakes log on your colleague is not considered to be a productive part of teamwork. Also, after all this went down, I finally forced her to have a discussion with me, and I just stood my ground. I told her that I'm not hard to work with, I am glad to help out with stuff, but I needed her to be reasonable about things. Management agreed with me and gave us some suggestions that to her credit she attempted to partake in, and things were okay for a couple of months. Then my wife called me one day to confess to me that she had come down with a medical problem that she had been hiding from me because she was embarrassed about it. It shook me up a bit, but I went and talked to my supervisor and I felt a lot better afterwards. I went back to work and I immediately got grilled by the coworker where did I go and what I was doing. Talking with our supervisor about what? Something private. She kept badgering me about it to the point that I had to ask her to stop and leave it alone because I didn't want to talk to her about it. Well, this pissed her off something fierce. The next day when we were working, she asked me a question about something, and when I responded she completely lost her mind and accused me of treating her poorly and demanded to know what the problem was. I told her I had some problems at home and if it was affecting my work I was sorry. She told me that I was full of crap, was lying about stuff to try and gather sympathy for me because I was so incompetent at my job. And that was it. It was war. I put down the equipment I had been working with and left the room, and when I walked away she was taunting me. "Why don't you go tell your mommy how I was mean to you?" Because she guessed correctly that I was heading right to the supervisor. Well, the supervisor was pissed off, wrote down the entire incident, wrote her up and filled in our manager too, who was also not very impressed. As for me, the gloves were off, this woman had to go, so I picked up my perfect weapon, the job she had been dog-effing around in the last few months. We had recently gotten a huge computer upgrade in the role that she covered and she would have been able to work a lot faster at her job. Instead, she took time pointing out all the flaws in the new system and filling her mistakes diary with all my errors and wrongdoings. One day, I even caught her taking pictures of equipment that I had worked on. As it turns out, I'd had to cover for her a couple of times and the job she was doing did not take the amount of time she was allotting to do it. I managed to finish off an entire day of work for her in the span of 90 minutes. And the next time she took a day off, the same thing happened. 90 minutes or less for everything that would normally take her a full 8 hours. So I told my supervisor, and the next time she took a day off, she got staff from another department to cover her spot for me, and one person posted a result slightly slower than mine, and the other person was actually a little faster than I was. So now my supervisor was in agreement with me, she was dog effing, and we both knew it. Time to spring my trap. Our management team goes absolutely giddy for efficiencies. Anything that makes your work better or faster will actually get listened to and usually approved. So I sat down and wrote a proposal that essentially broke our work area down into 2 zones. One being the returned equipment area and the other being the processing/configuring area. I magnanimously offered to take all of the processing and configuring off her plate and would allow her to deal with all of the returned equipment. On the surface, this looked like I was offering to do even more work than before, simply so that we could stop butting heads at work and be more efficient. In reality, I was offloading almost half of my entire job onto her in exchange for something that she had been screwing around with and trying to look busy doing. It went even better than I expected. I submitted my proposal to our supervisor, who loved it, and she in turn asked our manager to review it, and she thought it was excellent as well. And then they asked my colleague for her thoughts on the whole thing, and she flipped her effing lid. In email no less, and I know that because my supervisor just forwarded the original email to her and she hit reply all to it. She demanded that they immediately trash this idea, called me lazy and stupid, implied that she had way more seniority than me, told them that I wasn't smart enough to do her job, that I was discriminating against her, and threatened to take legal action. Management stalled on this a little bit because she was a long-time employee and she was making some very damning accusations. But my supervisor and manager had documented the litany of explosions I'd had to deal with while working with her, and all of our stories matched up. As a coup de grace, when I got called into HR to give my side of the story, I pointed out that the log and pictures she had been taken amounted to a campaign of harassment and was causing me to work in a toxic working environment. HR transferred her to another department where she proceeded to infuriate, vex and anger anyone she worked with while being given a workload about 1/6 of everyone else in the department. After about 2 months of this, the notice came out from HR that she was no longer part of the company. No less than 15 coworkers stopped by to congratulate me for being the one to finally outlast her. As a victory party, we reorganized the working area in the back and we got rid of her desk and chair and pictures and anything else that she might have contaminated with her insane attitude. She was there almost 20 years, maxed out salary scale, 5 weeks of vacation per year, decent benefits, retirement plan, all of it. Now she cannot even use us for a reference because she left on such bad terms. I don't even want to know what she is up to because she was so unpleasant to deal with, but I cannot imagine finding a new job at anything other than fast food is possible with a 15+ year gap in her resume. And guys, I gotta say, that was probably the ultimate revenge story on an awful coworker. And also, I would like to know, have you ever had to deal with just insane coworkers? Let us know your experiences in the comments or on r/ripe stories. And guys, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.